Hey everyone, Andrea with Natural Born Tillers here with our next installment of the Organic Gardening Masterclass series. And this month we'll be talking about planting, and our featured crop is peas. So a lot of us are anxious to start our spring and summer gardens, and luckily we actually can start a few things in Georgia. Different climates are obviously going to be a little bit different, but if you're in Georgia, you're in luck because we can plant sugar snap peas. If you'd like to plant sugar snap peas in your garden, you need to ask yourself a few questions. When to plant, of course, and what growing conditions it needs. So, as much as it's really tempting to grow sugar snap peas throughout the winter, there's really not enough sun exposure. So, you need to wait till about February, right? If we have our shortest day of the year with the least amount of light, which is the end of December, then you want to wait until you start to get that little bit more of sunlight. So you can plant them in February and March, and you want to do March at the latest because you want to be able to harvest all of your sugar snap peas before that crazy Georgia humid heat comes in at the end of May. When we plant our sugar snap peas, we like to use a few basic strategies to help us increase our production. One of the first strategies is bed preparation. So right here we have a bed of brassicas, some collard greens that have bolted, as you can see, right? So they're ready to go to seed, they've flowered, some of them have already started their pods. And so after brassicas, this is actually a great time to plant sugar snap peas or any type of pea or legume. And that's because brassicas are heavy nitrogen feeders. And so we want that nitrogen to be put back into the soil after, and so we're gonna plant sugar snap peas in order to do that. So we've taken out the brassicas, and now we're gonna prep the bed to plant our sugar snap peas. And it's pretty simple for sugar snap peas. We don't have to add a lot of fertilizer and compost and things like that. We're just gonna do worm castings. And worm castings is a really fancy way of saying worm poop and worm eggs. And these are really beneficial to the living microorganisms that live in your soil that are going to help keep your garden sustainable and organic and self-sufficient throughout the year. All right, so you just want to use a light dusting across the whole surface. You don't need to till it or incorporate it too much into the soil. You can just kind of lightly brush it around the surface, and it'll do just fine like that. A lot of times it's better to not till your soil super deep because you are disturbing the microorganisms and life that's already in your soil. Another strategy that we use is pre-sprouting our sugar snap peas. And we do this in order to give them the best chance at germination because when the soil temperatures are a little bit lower, your sugar snap peas will just kind of sit in the soil for a lot longer than you'd probably expect them to, and that actually gives the birds and the squirrels and chipmunks a better chance at finding them before they sprout and germinate. As soon as that happens, you know, they'll just grow and they'll be fine, but if squirrels and birds are curious and trying to find some food in the wintertime, they're gonna look into the garden and they're gonna love to find these. So in order to pre-sprout our sugar snap peas, we are going to soak them in water. So we're gonna place our dried sugar snap peas just like this, and we're gonna find a container and we're gonna fill it with water. And over the next 24 to 48 hours, the sugar snap peas will completely absorb as much water as they possibly can. And then after another 24 or 48 hours, they will start to sprout their roots, just like this. When you see that initial taproot, that initial sprout, you definitely want to be planting them within the next 24 hours to 48 hours because it is ready to grow. It wants to be in the soil and it wants to start growing. And that brings us to our next strategy that we have, which is using legume inoculant. And it's a bit of a magic trick. And basically, you coat your pre-sprouted sugar snap peas in this inoculant. It's kind of a little powdery substance. You can kind of see it's not harsh, it's very light. And this bag right here is for 50 pounds worth of sugar snap peas. So you really use about a tablespoon or so for this amount of sugar snap peas. And so After we coat them, then they're ready to plant. We want to make sure that it's on the surface and making contact, especially with the roots, because the roots are going to be doing the work. And the reason that we use this, the reason that this is a good strategy to use, is this is how your legumes turn into nitrogen fixers. Legumes are the only plants that are able to use the nitrogen that is in the atmosphere. Other plants have to mine it from the soil, and we as humans have to put nitrogen into the soil for our plants to use, right? But legumes are the only plant that can do that naturally. But they have a little bit of help, and that's where this legume inoculant comes in. And we actually have a good example of what happens right here. This is clover, which is also a legume, so you can even find this maybe in your yard. And if you can see those little nodules, and that is fixed nitrogen. Sugar snap peas will need a trellis, about 2 feet tall, nothing major, but about 2 feet tall. And you can do an entire bed if you'd like, but if you're not, we suggest putting them in the back of the bed because they will maybe create a bit of shade. So this is going to be just an entire bed of sugar snap peas for us. So we're going to do 3 rows. That way we have plenty of room for a trellis. So let's get to it. So we're just going to smooth this out. The reason we like to use troughs here instead of just doing individual, like poking a hole, is because you can plant sugar snap peas about 2 inches apart. So that is a significant amount of peas and a significant amount of small little holes that you're going to have to be pushing into the earth if you are not making just a simple trowel that you can just kind of sprinkle them in. So we're just going to plant more than we need, and then we will be thinning them as they get to about like 1 inch or 2 tall. So we will start to plant our sugar snap peas. Does not have to be perfect, like I said. That is looking pretty good. Soil to seed contact is important because that gives the best rates of germination and their best chance of growing. And so we are going to kind of push the 2 sides of the trough together, and then we're going to kind of just pat it down. You don't need to put a lot of pressure, but just so you know that the soil and the sugar snap peas have come into contact, and that way when you water, everything's just nice, tight, and ready to go.
Hey everybody, Corey here, and I just wanted to give you guys a quick intro into what we're actually planting now at our garden. So spring has sprung, everybody's excited to get things in the ground, and a lot of times there's questions of what is time to do and what is time not to do. So we're here at the end of March, beginning of April, and this is prime spring planting time. So think greens, think root vegetables, think tubers, things underground. Don't think things like tomatoes or peppers. It's not quite time for them yet. So we're planting things like kale, any kind of cabbage, lettuce, radish, turnip, carrot, all those things we're putting in the ground. Peas, obviously, you've seen. You're basically doing one of 2 things. You're transplanting something that you started that's nice and big. So you'll see some of our kales or our lettuces. We wait until they get as large as possible, and then we put them in the ground. Or you're directly seeding, as Andrea has demonstrated, and you are making sure that you have really good seed to soil contact, and you're getting those seeds planted, and within a few weeks, everything should be coming up. Another thing you might think of when you're getting ready for your spring garden is to consider your timing. So if you want to grow potatoes, but you also want to grow tomatoes in the same space, that might not work out. So whatever you're planting now, you got to think when it's going to come out. So if you wanted to put your tomatoes in, for instance, as early as possible, then you might just want to plant something quick like a radish or a turnip and give you that turnaround time. Another thing to consider is just what is the garden looking like right now? What is the weather happening? So you may have a big cold snap coming in and you need to be ready to cover. It may be like we are this week, you're growing a week without water. So just be sensitive to the environment. Everything's changing really fast during spring, and so just try to be responsive and pay attention to what's happening to your plants. The third and final thing I would say for a spring garden to get ready is just take a second and look for any last cleanup things that you need to do in your garden. This is a great time to do some preemptive weeding or mulching, just to get things ready, because before you know it, everything's going to sprout, everything's going to come up, and you're going to feel overwhelmed. So take some extra time, get yourself ready, and enjoy the beautiful spring.
There are so many incredible things that are happening in your gardens without your knowledge, and that's okay. You do not need to be an expert. What you need to do is just start. Just plant a seed. You're going to make some mistakes, but failure is part of the fun, and you will absolutely benefit from all of the times that you fail. So, take a chance and plant a seed, watch it grow, and share the harvest. Take care and eat well.